Hello, my name is Kim Sauer here in Nuremberg at SMT Nuremberg. I'm joined today by Michael Ford from Mentor Graphics. Michael, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
We often meet up at these shows and we discuss what's going on in the industry, and you're sort of on the ball of things at Mentor Graphics. What to you are the key topics that are the buzzwords and that are making everybody excited within the industry?
I think the buzzword today is Industry 4.0. But you know, we wanted to take a step back. I mean, we've been working with customers over the last 2 or 3 years, looking at really what are the drivers behind this change. And you know, some of them are quite simple, some of them have been going on for a long time, but have suddenly come into focus. For example, products are now shipped directly from factories. Maybe they're shipped from the factory to Amazon and then Amazon to the customer. So no longer do you have this kind of distribution chain where huge amounts of stock are managed by ERP. The whole of the sales cycle, the ordering is generated from that input. That kind of paradigm has now disappeared. And so even though you can see companies, I mean the companies of popular mobile phones, they know how to control their market on the mid and the long term. They simply spend some money on advertising and they know exactly what difference that's going to make in their demand pattern. But in the short term, they can't control that anymore. Because the orders are being placed directly now to the factories pretty much, it's the factory that sees now the need to change on a short-term basis to meet the customer demand. Now for surface mount in electronics, we know that to optimize the operation, you need consistent setup of materials, you need consistent operation. Now, these plants are being faced with having to make changes. So are these two things mutually exclusive, or are they not? And that is the big question that actually is facing people today.
Okay, so what's your take on the answer to that, or is there an answer to that at the moment?
There is an answer to that, and Industry 4.0 is great at recognizing the trend. It's making a kind of simple control for most manufacturing. Surface mount, as you said, we need something different, and I think the solution is a kind of, well, two things. First is we need an intelligence on the shop floor. We need to be able to make very quick and intelligent decisions to understand how we can move product between lines so that those lines can produce at 100% efficiency, meeting the customer need exactly. So we're not building to stock, and so we're not simply mirroring that distribution chain in the plant itself. So that control system needs to be in place, and it needs to be very specific to surface mount, understanding all of the ways of getting the advantage of productivity and yet being flexible. Now the problem with that is, and this is the second point, there are some barriers for factories to do that. One of the barriers, for example, is for engineering. We have a new model into production. Typically it takes so long to get it to work properly, it's only going to be on one line. So the planning guys, they've got no choice. They simply make it on this line. If the customer demand goes down, the line gets less efficient. That's a fact of life today. So one of the things we need is to be able to move products from line to line in just a click of the button, a couple of minutes later, and it's ready to run. So then we can use the right line for the job. The second problem is, how do we know what the shop floor is doing right now? Because you ask ERP, it has no idea. It doesn't have the detail of each process of each line. So to be able to make a judgment call of how to adjust manufacturing, we need to have a more real-time feedback from not just the SMT machines. It's not just one platform or many platforms of SMT. It's also from the hand mount, from the test, from the inspection, from the packing. The whole thing needs to be understood in order that that decision can be made. So that's two.
That's the challenge, yeah, big challenge.
There is one more, which is an actual physical challenge of materials. So a lot of cases we see materials have been pushed into manufacturing by ERP according to the schedule. And now our new Industry 4.0 planning clever system comes along and says, hey guys, move this, it's more efficient. And suddenly you're moving 3 days worth of material. This is stuff that you don't want to handle you don't want to lose, it costs you a lot of money, and you lose one of the chips on there, that's a product that now you can't ship. So materials have to be taken out of the shop floor. We have to forget this ERP operation that's been going on since the 1970s and replace it with something that's founded on today's technology. We're not replacing ERP, but we are going to bring enhancement to it. So it has the visibility, it has the material control, and that removes these barriers and resistances for the logic of our live planning and control system to actually then respond to the need of the customer.
But that's the key goal. The key goal of both Industry 4.0 and what you're describing, the challenges are, it's really getting a quality product to the customer in the way they want it, in the quickest time possible, at the lowest cost possible, and the highest quality in all those areas. So if that's the goal of Industry 4.0, how does what you're describing really differ from that? Industry 4.0, for a lot of people that I've been talking to say, well, it can't be achieved, but it's a great concept to make everybody think about optimization and ultimately control of the system, or the supply chain.
Yeah.
Is that not what you're describing?
It is, actually. But you know what, I would disagree with a couple of people there, because Industry 4.0, it is a great concept. It is founded on key fundamental principles in the market. But if you start to take your eye off the ball there, if you start to make excuses to say, well, we're going to improve things, we're going to meet these flexibility goals, you lose sight of the fact that this is actually a paradigm change. This is not something that can be incrementally improved. We can't just send materials to the shop floor faster and expect things to work better. It's not going to happen. So stick with the principles. Make sure that people understand what kind of change is going to be made. Now, this is where the problem happens, because you've got people who are responsible for manufacturing of critical products in a live operation who know that you change something in the operation, you're introducing risk. And they've seen it happen over and over again. So we and all of the people who are talking about Industry 4.0 are coming along and saying, hey guys, you need to change. Now the gut reaction is, no. We don't feel comfortable about making this kind of change. And so our message is that, look, for the last 2 or 3 years, we've been working on this product portability, the lean NPI flow from Graphics, the gathering of the data from the shop floor, production planning. These are tools where, we can show customer examples where they've had actual benefits. Some of the benefits are embarrassing for the companies. They say about materials, they've saved so much money. It was more that they saved in Europe than they would have saved had the plant been in China and they were paying, the labor rates in China. It's not much of a difference that they've achieved. And so the message that we're trying to put forward is, don't compromise on Industry 4.0. It's there for a reason. There is something real behind it. However, the way it's implemented for SMT, it is a little bit special. There is something additional that is needed. But don't compromise on that. Simply look at the reality of what can be done using today's technology to be able to make it possible to achieve what Industry 4.0 wants. So I think you're right, the messaging is kind of the same, but what I fear is that people are going to start making excuses, they're going to start buying things that people recommend, thinking that they're going to be heading toward Industry 4.0. But this is supposed to be a revolution. Yes. You don't have an incremental revolution. It happens,
That's true.
And so this is, I think, why we see this as being exciting in the industry. All of these guys here, they are seeing this as something that's changing, something that's different, something that challenges us as suppliers and customers as well. And it's driven by the solid demand in the market, and that's what makes it a real, something that's really going to happen.
It's a very interesting topic, and a lot of people have all sorts of views. What is nice about it is I think everybody's talking about it together, communicating, and that in itself is a great thing to sort of get the industry together, a think tank of thought leadership. And yes, you've got the theory versus the reality, and hopefully I think the two will gradually come together and marry in a nice way to find solutions. But
Exactly.
very interesting talking to you about Industry 4.0 and your take on it. I'm sure we'll have lots of discussions going forward as well. And yes, good luck with the rest of the show here
Okay.
as well.
Yep, thank you very much indeed.
Thank
nice
you.
to see you. Thanks.